Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy, joined by my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Yes, and a special guest.
Special guest, Olivia, making her debut on the podcast. You
And
will
my
definitely
children are
see her.
not on camera with me, but you might hear them during the podcast because they are upstairs and they're loud.
Yeah, no idea if you're going to hear Olivia. You'll definitely see her if you're on YouTube, so we'll see. But we got an excellent show for you. We are going to talk about the box office. We're going to talk about Shazam coming out. And of course, we'll spend some time breaking down the Oscars. All right, Rob, let's get it started. So, for the box office this week, we had number one in the box office in its first week, Scream 6. Did $44 million to take home number one. It was a good week in the box office overall. Creed 3 in its second week did 27.3 million. That one's over 100 million now. So excellent showing for Creed 3. You have 65 in its first week did 12.3 million. Ant-Man and the Wasp in week number 4 did 7.1. That has a total of 198 million. And Cocaine Bear with 6.2 million. It's up over 50 for its 3 weeks in the box office. All right, Rob, what'd you see?
Well, I think they're going to keep making more Scream movies because if you make $45 million on the opening weekend, there's no reason to stop making them.
Uh-huh. Yep, for sure. Yeah. Continued success for, this is semi-horror genre. It's kind of comedy horror, as it were, I think. How would you classify the Scream movies?
I would classify them as horror because they're very much focused on slasher idea, which is like people getting stabbed to death. So although there are fun, it's very self-aware, and there are funny parts. Like it's essentially the movies all are based on a series of movies in the universe they're in called the Stab series. So it's a movie about a guy going around like stabbing people to death, but it's also about a movie series in that universe about a guy going around stabbing people to death. So like the guy in the movie is basing what he does off of the guy in the movie within the movie. That makes any sense. And so there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of blood. So it's not for squeamish people for sure, but it is, like you said, it is very self-aware. There's definitely some comedy elements to it, but I would still call it horror because there are definitely scary parts.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I can totally see that. Since we haven't been on for a couple weeks, I should probably indicate that that's because I was out of the country and the Wi-Fi was weird there, and the time change and all of that stuff led to us being away for a couple weeks. So we haven't talked about any of the movies that are in the top. I'm not surprised by the success of Creed 3. I'm not sure what I expected for 65. I think maybe I was expecting a little bit more for that. And I'm still interested in seeing that one, but it's not a terrible showing given what's in the box office right now. And Ant-Man did well, but not to the length that some of the other Marvel movies have. What did you think? What did you think of Cocaine Bear in 3 weeks doing 50 million?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how much money it would make, but apparently a whole bunch of people are interested in seeing the craziness of it.
Yeah. I think it's funny because it's quote based on a true story. And in real life, like the bear just ate cocaine and died.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I don't know how much you could say it's based on a true story. Was there a bear who in fact ate cocaine? Yes. Did any of the movie actually happen? No.
Yeah.
So yeah. But good week for the box office overall. If you look at the total monetary count, it's pretty high. A lot of people went to see the movies last weekend. And I anticipate that continuing this weekend as we have 2 movies that came out. Number 1, of course, being Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. And Moving On is the second one. So I'll just briefly give you a rundown on Moving On.
and
before
then we'll move on.
we move on. Yes. This stars Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, Malcolm McDowell, and his two old friends reconnect at a funeral and decide to get revenge on the widower who messed with them decades before. So there you go. And of course, then
Sounds like the opposite of moving on, but okay.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah, definitely some irony in the title there. Then you have Shazam, and this continues the storyline of Billy Batson, who, upon reciting the magical word Shazam, is transformed an adult superhero. Now all of his friends are superheroes, and this one is coming back to that storyline. So you have there's lots of characters in this movie because you have all the kids when they're younger, and then you have all their adult characters. But in addition, this is also going to have Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as gods, as it were, along with some others. And so, what do you make of Shazam 2?
I think there's a lot of anticipation for this movie. I think you're going to see high double digits to low triple digit opening weekend for this movie, because I think this is the most excited that I've seen people be for a new release in a little while. So I think the fact that Scream made $44 million easily beats that. The question is by how much does it end up making?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think this one, the first one was quite good and quite well received. So I think people are looking forward to this one. I think it just has a different tone than a lot of the other ones, which I think people appreciate. And I look forward to this one doing probably at least 80 million, I would think.
I think what helps the first one of these and now this one coming out is that now superhero movies in general kind of feed into the escape from reality ideal, but I think given the sense of humor and the storyline of this particular superhero, like, and the reverence of it and a whole bunch of things all combined together, I think it lends itself to a movie that has a broad appeal. Like, I think there are like 40, 50 somethings who are interested in this movie. I think there are 20 and 30 somethings who are interested in this movie. I think there are teenagers who are interested in this movie. Like, this is a movie where, like, probably teenagers and up, you could have like families going to.
Yeah.
But there are not a whole lot of movies that have that broad of a scope.
No,
anymore.
I agree. And I think the appeal of this and the range is quite broad. So I anticipate this movie doing well. And I think it's good. I think it's good. Are you planning on going to see it?
I am not sure when I'll get a chance to see it, but I am hoping to go see it. Yes.
Yeah. I am as well. So I'm not sure if it's this weekend or if it'll be sometime this week, but that's the plan.
I don't think I have any plans tonight, so maybe I'll go see it.
There you go. Yeah. Could be on the agenda.
Yeah.
All right. So hang on one second. So now let's move on to our Oscars discussion. So of course the Oscars took place last Sunday night, and the big winner, of course, was Everything Everywhere All at Once. Very, very successful run for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Nominated for 11, won 7, which was a very impressive showing for the movie. So what we can do here is, do you have any, before we get into the specifics, do you have any overall thoughts on the Oscars in general this year?
I found, so in general, it's very interesting because we've seen the Oscars trending towards like the things people haven't seen, or the people things aren't the people actors people aren't invested in, or like focused on obscurity kind of. And the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once is such an interesting movie because it's that kind of movie, I think, but it's one that the public latched onto. So I think it's like simultaneously the weird avant-garde movie that they want to recognize, but this time the public like got behind it. So I think that like you think about the phrase task failed successfully. Like I think the Academy Awards like accidentally picked the right movie this time because people actually liked it and people actually saw it. And it made way more money and was more successful than it had any right to be or do.
Yeah.
And I felt that overall, like almost through every category, that people who deserved recognition were recognized. And I have not felt that way about these awards in a while.
I kind of agree with you. Yeah, I think you're on the right track there. What I would say is, I don't think they royally screwed up. And I do think they made reasonable decisions on this. What I would say is that I don't think it did anything to fix the chasm between what the Academy values and what the public values. There happened to be this weird kind of amalgamation overlap this particular time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's hard, but I do think Top Gun should have won more than it did. Yeah. But yeah. Okay. So let's get into it a little bit. Okay. So we'll hit up the main ones and then we'll talk about any of the other smaller categories that you want to reference. But Best Picture went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. And Best Directing for Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert also went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. Best Actor in a Leading Role did not, actually, and it wasn't even nominated. Brendan Fraser won for The Whale.
That's because there was not a leading actor in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
You are correct. Best Actress in a Leading Role, however, did go to Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then the Best Supporting Actor went to Ke Huy Quan.
Yeah, Ke Huy Quan. Yep.
Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And Best Actress in a Supporting Role went to Jamie Lee Curtis for her role in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that's a pretty clean sweep outside of the one category where it wasn't really an entrant for all of the main high-profile awards. Let's break them down too. Would you have, given who was nominated, would you have given the award to Everything Everywhere All at Once for Best Picture?
Yes. Yeah, to me that one wasn't that one based on what was nominated, that wasn't really debatable for me. I felt that was the easy winner.
I would have seriously considering giving it to Top Gun. I get why they didn't, and there was never really a thought in my mind that the Academy would give it to Top Gun. It kind of award was that it got nominated, as it were. But I would have seriously considered it. But of the categories, I think Top Gun, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and All Quiet on the Western Front were all worthy. But I'm not surprised that it went where it went.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Best Directing. Now, Best Directing is always an interesting one. Are you generally a fan of giving the person who wins Best Picture the Best Director?
I think it makes sense, but I also think it's kind of lazy. So I can't say I'm the biggest fan of it.
It's kind of really a weird breakdown.
It's really hard to say this is the best movie of the year, but the people who directed it weren't the best at directing a movie. You know?
Yeah.
It's a strange delineation. I'm not really sure how you solve that issue.
I think you almost have to go for a qualitative aspect. A movie can be Best Picture because each one of the individual parts of it were all really good. But the but there could be a standout in one particular area in a different movie. So in other words, like directing for Everything Everywhere could have been at an 8, but there's another movie where the director was like a 9.5, you know, but the rest of that movie was not as good. So I don't know. I don't know how you differentiate it. Um, the directing one was the one where I have not seen. I saw Banshees of Inisherin and wasn't that impressed with it. But other than that, I didn't see the other three were directors who were nominated, so I don't really have a large opinion on it, other than I think it went to the right one. But
I think a lot of the question too is much like a coach who wins Coach of the Year award. Is it just because they had great players, or is it because they got the best out of their players? And I think when you're looking at someone for Best Director, a big consideration has to go to, did they get the most out of the people acting in their movie?
mm-hmm.
And I think that Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's no doubt in my mind that they get the best out of the actors in the movie.
Yeah. Speaking about getting the best acting out, actor in the leading role. For best actor, we ended up with Brendan Fraser for The Whale. I still have not gotten around to seeing The Whale. But everyone's been raving about his performance for months now.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a little surprised it wasn't Austin Butler.
That's the one you asked us to look at what might have been snubs, and that's one for me, Austin Butler. Although it does seem like the Academy is also kind of leaned into that. If you're in a biopic and you're the main, then you get the award automatically. Trap. So it's just we're surprised that it didn't happen.
Yeah. It's possible. And you also, this is another one too, where like everyone's heard of Brendan Fraser's return and they've heard of The Whale, but almost nobody's actually seen The Whale.
Yeah.
So it's another instance of like the Academy choosing from out of left field for some of these things where that wouldn't have been the case if they had chosen Austin Butler.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think we're still dealing with that issue of the gap in perception. Yeah. But best actress in the leading role, Michelle Yeoh. There was some competition on this one, but I'm not at all surprised Michelle Yeoh won for leading actress.
Yeah, I would say that out of all the categories, I think that the highest percentage of deserved win for Everything Everywhere All at Once is probably the lead actress.
Yeah.
Category, because I thought she was phenomenal.
Yeah.
In the movie, she put a lot of passion and intelligence into the role. I think the role would have suffered with anyone else in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if that's the case, it's a testament to the actress. And I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think her performance was great because she starts out as a resistant character and has to work her way into it. So she starts out almost as kind of the bad guy in this story. And as she works through it, you see the character develop as she gets further into the story. And it's kind of interesting because Michelle Yeoh speaks perfect English. So to have her going back to, that pretending, I guess she's acting, but doing that role where she's kind of speaking poor English and kind of pretending like I wonder if that's a little difficult. But she did it well. She pulled it off well. So yeah, this was no surprise at all. And let's cover both the supporting actress roles. Both of them went to the characters, the supporting actor and actress's role. Both of them also went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. And went to Ke Huy Quan and Jamie Lee Curtis. Did any of those, every one of those feel good to you, or would you have gone a different direction?
I think there's an argument to be made that Stephanie Hsu had the better performance actually in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah,
and she didn't win.
Yeah, it's weird when you get two actresses for the same role from the same movie.
Yeah, And I also think that Angela Bassett was phenomenal in Wakanda Forever. But I think that a lot like Top Gun Maverick being nominated for Best Picture, I think Angela Bassett getting nominated for Best Actress for a Marvel movie, like to be chosen as one of the five, I think was a win.
Yeah,
that's their way of basically saying that was like I think there's a bit. I think there is a ceiling. Like I don't think a Marvel actor or actress is going to win an award for best.
no, I don't think so.
So I think just to be nominated in the top five is an achievement.
Yeah.
And I thought a good recognition because I think she was really, really good in that role.
Yeah, I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis was probably the best performance. I think this is a case of sometimes you just have like domino effect when a movie is as good as it is and is going to win as much as it is. It picks up wins in categories that maybe it might not have actually been the best in. So I would view Jamie Lee Curtis's win a little bit in that vein. Not that she was bad by any stretch, but having watched the movie a couple of times, I mean, she's good, but nothing about her performance to me stood out as like exceptional.
I feel that she's much more a static character than Stephanie Sue, as I thought she had much more of a character development throughout the Jamie Lee Curtis's character did. Yeah, they're both important characters, but to me, the more vibrant character was Stephanie's character.
Yeah. Now on the other side, Ke-Huy Quan, I thought was absolutely deserving of his Best Supporting Actor role. He is the grounding of Everything Everywhere all at Once, a movie where there is almost no grounding whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, you would say the phrase "stole the show" definitely applies to him in this. And even though I said Michelle Yeoh was like the blinding light from this movie, there's not a movie without his character and how it was played. So it's almost equally as important.
Yeah, absolutely. And to basically come out of not acting for however long it was, to jump back into a role and win an Oscar is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I don't remember if you remember this, but I saw this movie a few weeks after it came out.
Yeah. And
I remember saying to my friends, and probably on this podcast, this movie's going to win a lot of awards.
Yeah.
And I said that kind of hopefully because I realized how strange it was. But I also, there was something about the movie after watching it. It touched a chord. It struck a nerve.
Yeah.
There was something about it. Some movies you see, there's an indefinable quality about them, and this movie has it. And I knew as soon as I saw it that it was going to impact people.
Yeah.
It's a very emotional movie, but it's also insane. And it's also intelligent, and it's all these things all together. And I'm happy to see that I was correct and that it was recognized because I think it was worthy of a lot of the recognition it got.
Yeah, and we'll get back to its ongoing legacy here in a moment. But let's hit up anything else. Were there any other highlights that you wanted to give from any of the other awards?
Nothing really stuck out to me super much, but I was mainly focused on the main things, to be honest, when the show was on. So
yeah. Guillermo del Toro, Pinocchio, for Best Animated Film. Not surprised there. It was interesting. All Quiet on the Western Front did quite well. It did not win Best Picture, but it did win for Best Original Score, and it won for Best International Film, which is a pretty prestigious award because there's some good international films. But this one won. I think it shows how far along Netflix has come just in the last couple of years with the movies they're producing, and this to me was one of the best they've produced.
Yeah, I think Guillermo del Toro's win for Pinocchio is a big win for Netflix. Going up against Disney and DreamWorks and coming out on top there is an achievement. Yeah,
and I think All Quiet on the Western Front won four awards, including cinematography, which when you beat Roger Deakins in cinematography, something's up. Which I still have to see. Empire of Light is the one that he cinematographer on this year. I have not gotten a chance to see that. I want to. This is the first time I'm like, I need to see this movie because of the cinematographer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I'm
need.
sure Disney can't be too pleased that Pinocchio won Best Animated Picture and it wasn't a Disney version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, Wakanda Forever did win an Oscar for costumes, which is, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And the only one that Top Gun won is for sound editing, which, yeah, I mean, the sound in that movie was amazing. So I'm not
Yeah.
surprised there. But that's the one I would think. The biggest snub for me is the fact that I is that just didn't win more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anything else for you before we, kind of get to legacy type stuff?
I don't think I have anything else now.
Okay. So my question is this. I mean, as we've gone through, because we did our last few episodes, we've gone through the list of best picture winners and talked about some other alternatives and movies that came out that year. But you started seeing the disconnect, especially in the 2020s, but towards the end of the 2010s, between the gap between what the Academy values and what your average moviegoer values. Um, and so a lot of the films that have won Best Picture of the last few years are completely forgotten films. Like nobody cares about them, nobody watches them. 5 years down the road, nobody will even remember they existed. Um, so how do you view Everything Everywhere All at Once in that light? Do you think this is a film that is going to stick with people and it's going to be watched down the road? Or are we going to be looking back at this one 10 years from now being like, ooh, that one won Best Picture? Really? Well, what do you think?
Um, I think this one is one that could become like this is one I feel like could become a classic in some ways because I think that like 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
um, it'll be introduced to another generation of people, and I think the themes in it, the grounding theme of the importance of family, I think such a timeless thing
Yeah.
that I really think it's a movie that's going to last. Um, I think the main thing that it might do is encourage creativity and daring, not just with directors but with studios and the willingness to give directors a chance to do something outside of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that it might lead to. It's interesting because in one end, I think it might lead the academy and other governing bodies like that to pay more attention to things like this, but I also think it might lead the general audience to pay more attention to things like this. So, like I said, the academy kind of fell backwards into this. I feel like audiences went forward into this and they met, like you said, amalgamation like in the middle. There's just this overlap that happened. And, my hope would be that that's something that is rolled on and continues down the road. And we see more like passion projects like this and more creativity and daring and aspiration come into filmmaking because that's what we want from movies. We want an escape. We want to be challenged. We want new ideas. So I think that's like the wish goal of this movie. We don't know for sure if that's going to happen, but I think there's a high likelihood just because, like I said, the underlying themes of this movie, the compassion, the family, the determination are things that will resonate with people no matter what time it is that they're watching this.
Yeah, so I'll go halfway. It's not going to be completely forgotten like Coda was last year, or like whatever the nature documentary or whatever that won 2 years ago. It's not going to be completely forgotten. I would say it's going to end up in the cult classic status, where it will be well known and revered in movie circles and in people who are good fans of cinema. I don't know that it's going to hold a massive legacy with your average moviegoer. I think you're going to see 10 years from now, Top Gun Maverick will have a much bigger recurring audience, but that's partially because of the type of movie it is. But I do think it will retain cult classic status, something like The Big Lebowski, where like 20 years from now, everyone's still talking about it in that
Hmm.
sense. So I do think it's going to retain its value. I don't think it's going to be completely forgotten, but I don't think it's going to enter into the realm of highly valued movies in the same way, but it will be well regarded. And so I think from that standpoint, it's done well.
Yeah,
And
it'll definitely be a movie down the road that people will say, "Have you seen this?" Someone will say no, and they'll be like, "Oh, you got to see this." And
yeah,
then they'll be done seeing it, and they'll be like, "What did I just watch?"
yes. Uh-huh. So I think, and that the experience of the movie is what's going to keep it alive because it's such a unique experience. I have not been to a movie that I've been like, what is going on to this extent in a long time. So I think that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, and that's going to be what makes it work.
Yeah, I just think that the overall final thought I have on it, the thing that's most impressive about it, is it managed to make you feel that way, but it still had a grounding in like realism, like of human emotion. So the fact they were able to tie those two things together was, I think, its most impressive feat and why it ended up being so successful.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see going forward. I mean, you never know. Any there are some times where you thought, oh yeah, that was the best movie. And 5 years down the road, you're like, yeah, no, it wasn't. Um, but I think it's got a good chance. So let's move on to our next thing. I thought we would just hit up just briefly. Did you see Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I've not seen it yet, so I can't talk about
Okay.
it.
So we will we'll save that for another time. I just figured since we were off for a few weeks, if you had seen it, we could talk about it. I actually saw it in Fiji, which was fun.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was we had talked about it was interesting because Fiji has a lot of ties with India. And so it was like two American movies and then three Hindi movies. And it was a lot of the same stuff we're seeing in American box office too. So it was kind of funny because
Cool.
Indian cinema is probably, I mean, it's second or third biggest cinema.
Yeah, I mean the one of the original song from a movie from India won the best original song this year
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
Oscars.
So it's kind of funny. You go over to a foreign country and you end up seeing movies that you would have seen here, which is cool. So I got to see it. It was better. I will say this: it was better than what I anticipated, given some of the comments about it beforehand and my low expectations going in. It was better than I thought it was. It was going to be.
So since we're not going to talk about the movie itself, um, was there any difference culturally to your experience of seeing a movie in another country?
Um, no, frankly. It was cheaper over there.
Uh-huh.
I think for $10, I got a movie, a popcorn, an ice cream, and a drink.
Wow.
So the projector was pretty close to the same quality. The screen was pretty much the same quality. The seats were significantly worse, but that's what it it's what you expect. But it was a very classic looking cinema and a classic looking cinema experience. So I found it very familiar.
Yeah. I feel like if either of us ever visit another country, like it's a requirement that we go watch a movie in a theater in that country.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we've got to have support on how. So was it just as far as presentation goes, just straight English with no subtitles or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
The in Fiji, they pretty much everyone speaks English. A lot of them also speak Hindi, but pretty much everyone speaks English. So they didn't need to do any that. I guess didn't feel like they needed to do subtitles on that. But yeah, so the whole thing was in English, no subtitles.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, which made it easier for me, of course.
The most important question I have to ask is, how is the water?
Ah, yes, the water was excellent. Yeah, good water. Yeah, good place for water. Oh, yes. All right. Well, we can move on to our watch list, movies that we've watched over the past week or two. I'm going to give you basically an amalgamation of movies that I've watched for the last couple weeks. I spent 30 some hours on airplanes, which meant I watched a lot of movies over the past couple weeks. But we'll start with Rob. What'd you watch?
So I saw Scream 6 in the theater.
Okay.
My best friend, and it was really good. I've both of the newer ones have been quite good.
Hmm.
Not surprised that they're successful with an audience because um, they are well shot, well acted. There's an interesting story with twists all the way through it. Um, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's definitely, like I said, it's not for the squeamish. If you don't like blood, don't want to watch this movie. It is very violent at times, but it is also like a send up of horror movies. So it's got that combination of like being comedy, but also, it leans heavily into the tropes, but sometimes like as it's leaning in, like the thing actually happens. That you're like, oh no, it's gonna happen, then it actually happens. But sometimes it's just a psych out, and they do a good job of balancing that. And I thought the payoff in the movie was pretty well executed.
Yeah.
So Scream 6. And I also saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish again. I'm
Okay.
actually watching for my kids. Um, it's one of the better animated movies I've seen in the last few years. Probably the best villain in a cartoon movie I've seen in quite a long time.
Hmm.
Uh, so I'd highly recommend. Wagner Mora is the name of the guy who plays um, the wolf in the movie, who's also Death, and he's very unsettling. I would say it's not for little kids. It's actually scary, which is
Hmm.
not normal. John Mulaney is also in it as Jack Horner, and he's
Okay.
hilarious. And uh, my favorite part of the movie, though, is there's a little Jiminy Cricket character that comes out
Hmm.
who talks in a Jimmy Stewart voice, and it is the funniest thing ever. And he's like, "Oh no, you're a monster!" Like he's trying to get Jack Horner to listen to him, be his conscience, and he finally realizes that he doesn't have a conscience. Uh, I'm starting to think you don't understand the value of human life, Jack. Like, it's so great to see him go through this existential dread and crisis.
Oh.
And does a really good job of playing off of the tropes of like classic,
Hmm.
let your conscience be your guide in animation and cartoons we've seen before.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, especially if you have kids, I'd recommend watching it with them. It's funny. Um, and it also at the very end teases a movie that's coming out in not too long, the new Shrek movie. Um,
Yes.
teased at the end of Puss in Boots. So
Okay. Excellent. So I watched a movie that I had never watched had never completed. I've started it a few times, but I've never completed it. I've told everyone a couple times that I followed the Twitter feed, the weekly movie challenge, and have been trying to take on the challenges. And 2 weeks ago, the challenge was in honor of the 25th anniversary of The Big Lebowski, to watch a cult classic. And usually, you try to do one that you haven't seen before, if possible. So I was trying to think, oh man, what cult classic movie have I not actually seen? And the one that stuck out to me is like, I've never completed Pulp Fiction
hmm.
because I've never liked it. I didn't like it. And so there were a couple times I tried and couldn't get through it and just turned it off twice, 2 or 3 times I've done that. So I'm like, all right, this time I'm going to get through Pulp Fiction. And I did. I got through Pulp Fiction. And I didn't hate it like I did the first couple times. It's still not one of my favorite Tarantino movies, but I get it more now.
Mm-hmm.
Than I have before. So yeah, yeah. So I have now officially seen Pulp Fiction.
So what do they call a Whopper in Fiji? Is a Royale with cheese? So
Those two are by far the best characters in the movie, by the
that is a tasty burger. Yeah,
way.
uh, um, yeah. Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson are fantastic.
Yeah,
Um, I've loved Pulp Fiction since the first time I saw it, so I'm biased in this discussion.
yeah.
But like I think everyone who has interacted with Quentin Tarantino has like a few movies of his they love and a few that they can't stand. And Pulp Fiction has always been on my list of ones that I love.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I love probably like 5 or 6 of his movies, and a couple of the ones that I love are ones that a lot of people don't like. But
Mm.
that's okay
Yeah.
because you know um, he is over the top. There is no denying that. And Pulp Fiction is certainly one of his most over the tops.
Yes. So I also watched The Truman Show, and I felt like I needed to watch The Truman Show because he references Fiji multiple times in that movie. It's like where the girl he likes, or her dad, like makes up that they're moving to Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
And then he spends like his whole time like secretly researching Fiji. And so it just felt necessary since I was in Fiji. So on my way back from Fiji, I watched Truman Show. I also watched Where the Crawdads Sing. I hadn't seen that one yet, so I got to watch that one. Very well acted. Very well acted. Interesting story. I don't know that I like it. It's not an easy story. It's not an easy story, and the ending is interesting. Obviously, there was some controversy around that, not necessarily necessary controversy, but there was some controversy around it. So it's an interesting movie, but I don't necessarily think that I actually liked it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really speak to it.
Because there's a lot, you spend a lot of it, like there's a lot of emotional, relational trauma that the girl goes through. And then the ending is kind of like, okay, so what are you trying to say here? what exactly is the message here? So that's what I saw. All right, you got anything else?
I don't think I'm gonna bolt to the theater. Check out Suzanne.
Have at it. All right. Until next time, make sure you check out filmfans.com. Tell your friends about the podcast and YouTube channel. Until next time, enjoy the movies.